Afternoon, everybody. Okay, well, we're going to get kicked off. Welcome. I'm Noah Cherry with the Executive Business Programs group here at RIT, and I have the pleasure of introducing Mike Palanski to give a little talk for our Executive Insights webinar today. So before we get to that, I just want to give you a little idea of what we're doing here, and in case you don't already know, but we have executive business programs. So that includes our EMBA along with our custom executive ed programs. We cover areas in leadership, AI, innovation strategy, finance. Some of you have participated in some of our programs before, so thank you for that. And what else do we have? So our EMBA, in case you haven't been through the program, 16-month program. We have a hybrid and online, and it's full of experiential learning as well. So all the hands-on programming you have, along with our trips overseas, and we do some trips in the region as well. So that's a little bit about the EMBA. If you want any more information, let me know, and I can put you in touch with our recruiter. As always, I'm always looking for capstone projects. We do work with companies locally, regionally, nationwide, helping them solve key business challenges, whether it be identifying new markets or optimizing processes or trying to figure out how AI is going to work in their organization, things like that. So bringing a lot of value to the organization, bringing a lot of value to the EMBA program as well. So it's been great. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mike Palanski. He is a professor of management here in the Saunders College of Business, teaching in leadership, organizational behavior, and ethics. He takes a academic approach to everything. He combines academic research with practical application as a speaker, as an author, and executive coach. As a leading expert, his research on ethical leadership and leader development has been cited over 5,000 times. In his core philosophy, he is the author of the Me1st Method, which argues that effective leadership starts with focusing on oneself first to achieve greater leverage and impact. So with that, I'm going to toss it over to Mike for his presentation. Thank you, everybody. And if you have any questions or anything, post them in the chat. We'll be monitoring that. We'll probably have a little dialogue back and forth as well. So enjoy.
All right. Thanks, Noah. And hello, everyone. It is nice to be here with you. I saw Jancy's comment here to welcome some familiar names back in, and I see some on the participant list, and then some folks I haven't met yet. So welcome to all of you. So today we're going to focus on self, but in this case, self is sort of the punchline at the end. We're gonna come at it from a little different perspective. And just to give you a preview of what's upcoming, we're going to run this today in a series of just very short sprints, one topic at a time, where you'll have a little bit of time to, unfortunately for you, hear what I have to say. I'm going to give you a few minutes to reflect on it and then give you a chance to ask any questions, and then we'll move on to the next thing. So it's going to be pretty quick and pretty snappy. My goal here is to finish here about 10 minutes before the hour at the latest, because who doesn't want an extra 10 minutes before you move on to your next great things here. If you do have any comments, reflections, questions, please drop those in the chat. Noah and Jancy will be kind enough to monitor those, and we'll feed them out to everyone at those times. Okay. So here's what I'm thinking about today. This is the thing that's been on my mind quite a bit. Have you ever gone to a really great training? It could be leadership focused or something else focused, where you go maybe to an offsite, maybe to something within your office, and the content is just really helpful, really good. You're really excited. You walk out And as soon as you get back into your day-to-day, when you finally think you are about to apply all this great stuff that you learned, you can't. And you can't because it is something that is out of your control. So for instance, maybe you went and you got some great training on how to give feedback. Like, this is great, got some principles here, maybe even did some role plays. I'm feeling so much better about how to give feedback. And then reality hits. And it's not that you don't know how to give feedback and to hear feedback, it's that the culture that you are operating in becomes so driven to putting out fires. You never even get to the point where you have a chance to schedule a one-on-one in order to do this feedback thing. Like, it just disappears because of something else. Has anybody had an experience like that? You can give me a thumbs up and give me that virtual hand. You can say yes in the chat. Um, you can't say no because that won't be a good setup and a good prop for what's to come here. Yay. Okay. Very, very well. You're a well-trained bunch of people. Very good. So here's what I think is the major practical problem with most leadership development programs. It's exactly that. We take folks out of their environment, we put them somewhere else, it can be virtual, be an offsite, whatever it is, give them a bunch of really good knowledge, practice some skills, help to develop some abilities, and throw them right back into reality in which it just doesn't quite apply the same way it did in that classroom or in that ballroom. The ultimate antidote to that, I think, is very bespoke, personalized, one-on-one development work, like you would do with an executive coach, where you can bring exactly what you're facing in, have a conversation around it, maybe find some outside resources to bring to bear on that, and then go back in to the day-to-day, practice it out, adjust, and it really becomes very helpful because it's very particular to the challenges that you are facing. Unfortunately, that sort of very intensive one-on-one is prohibitive for most people, financially, time-wise, resource-wise. So now we're kind of stuck. We either do this really good stuff that may or may not apply, or we have these, very expensive, very time-intensive, bespoke approaches. What I've been working on with some of my colleagues, do some research to try to find a middle way, a middle ground. Is there something that we can do to help people apply all this good stuff that they've learned or they've read about or they've listened to podcasts on their own, but actually make it look like something that we can actually use? All right. So that's what we're going to try to do here today. All right. And what you're going to need is just a blank piece of paper. Don't worry, I won't be collecting it or grading at the end, so you can you can feel free to whatever piece of paper you have in front of you, or if you've completely gone to the electronic side and you've got your iPad in front of you, that's perfectly fine too. Just something to collect your thoughts. And what I want us to begin with is this. So I'll bring up my screen here. Sorry, a little technical difficulty on my end here. Okay. Microsoft keeps thinking that I need help. I don't, dear Microsoft. Thank you. Okay, so everybody starts with a really good iceberg type diagram. Here's mine. All right. We're going to be talking about the challenges that we face as leaders from a systems perspective. And we're going to be looking at it through three different lenses. Administrative systems. So this is the iceberg, the part that you see on the surface. So we'll get into that in just a second, but this is the world of org charts and KPIs and performance evaluation plans. But underneath the surface are the things that we don't like to talk about in polite company, the emotional systems. Who's feeling anxious? Where's anxiety residing in the system? Why do we seem to have this culture of just continually putting out fires? So those are the things that we don't see. And then kind of sitting on top of it, in this case, it's the sun coming out to melt the iceberg, or the wind blowing the iceberg along with the currents, are open systems about those outside influences, those interconnected, the interconnected world in which we live, and all of the uncertainty, both promise and opportunity, but also challenges that it brings with it. AI is a perfect example of that, the one that we all seem to be talking a lot about, but nobody really knows what to do about. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to look at these one at a time, right? But in order to provide some context, what I would like you to do in just a moment is to think about yourself. Think about a leadership challenge that you are currently experiencing or anticipate experiencing in the next 6 months or so. Right? This will be your focal point. This will be where we'll make things real. So I'm going to give you about 3 minutes here. I'm going to have my timer queued up here. And I want you to think about just these things, the nature of the challenge. What is it? All right, what's going on? Why this is important to you and to your organization. And as far as you know at this point, what success might look like. So again, on that blank piece of paper, just take 3 minutes, just jot down a couple of bullet points, just so you get your head around, oh, this is the leadership challenge that I want to be thinking about. Okay. All right. And we will start that timer. You got 3 minutes to do that. Okay, we got about 30 seconds. Wrap up your thoughts. Do you have any questions for this one? You can put those in the chat. Okay. With your leadership challenge in mind, you've got a bit of context. We're going to go through these 3 different types of systems one at a time, and we're going to follow kind of the same format for each one. I'll spend about a minute just kind of roughly introducing what we mean by this type of system. I'll have a slide up here that has a whole bunch of information, some different descriptors, some key questions that I will keep up. So I'll talk about that for just a minute. Again, I'm going to give you 3 minutes on each one to think about what aspects of this type of system are present in my leadership challenge. So 3 minutes. And then we'll have about 2 or 3 minutes for you to ask any questions. So if in the course of thinking about this, if you do have a question, you can put that right in the chat. We don't do that if we don't have any chat questions. I will open it up and you can ask verbally. If you do ask a question verbally, please start it with this. My question is, and then ask your question. If I need some details or backstory, I will ask about that. But in order to keep things moving out of consideration for everyone, just ask the question. My question is, okay. All right, let's move along here. So administrative systems, let's start here. Administrative systems. Now I'm going to do something that is a bit out of character for me. I'm actually going to read the description here so that I make sure I get it right on the money the first time. Administrative systems are the formal rational structures designed to achieve specific outcomes. This is the world of organizational charts, strategic plans, performance metrics, bureaucratic processes that define how work gets done. But they also encompass the broader structural elements like legal frameworks, regulatory requirements, industry standards, and governance structures that help to shape organizational life. In administrative systems, leadership means influencing behavior to support organizational goals within established frameworks, right? So these are the things, clear authority lines, who makes decisions, who's responsible for what, job descriptions. It's all about efficiency and predictability. Okay, and then here's a couple of key questions. How are decisions made? How measurable are goals really? And how connected is the work that we're doing to the overall strategy of the organization? So what are one or two key possible administrative system dynamics to your leadership challenge? It doesn't mean it has to be spot on, 100% accurate, just whatever's coming up for you in the moment. What are some of the challenges related to administrative systems? So I'll give you 3 minutes to think through that one. And again, ask questions along the way. All right, 3 minutes. Okay, we've got about 30 seconds here. Move that up. Okay. Any questions, first of all, regarding administrative systems? Doesn't. You have a pop-up poll here. All right, so we have a variety of different administrative systems challenges. Could I here, we'll show those. Could I impose upon one person just to give us a quick synopsis? What's your leadership challenge, and what's the key um, administrative system challenge that you're facing? Hey, thanks, Akua. I really appreciate you stepping forward.
Okay,
Great.
perfect. Um, yes, so mine is one for the future. I currently am in an LDP program, and my next role will be a project manager for supply chain.
Yeah.
Um, so I had a lot of administrative systems challenges that I expect to face. I selected that measurable goals and performance standards would be probably the key one for me. Um, just because like in creating these different project goals and things, I feel like I typically tend to be like, oh yes, it was successful because we did this, but what are those like actual standards? One that I had wrote down during the 3 minutes was like the KPIs to achieve upon implementation. So
Yeah.
those are my thoughts.
Thank you so much. Yeah, perfect. That's everything from, all right, here's the project. Do we really know what we're trying to accomplish with this project? And if so, then how does that all waterfall down and how do we keep everything aligned? Very, very important, but also very typical. So that's a great example. Okay, very good. Let's move on. All right. So we got administrative system challenges. Now we're going to move to open systems, or the interactions that keep it interesting. Open systems are dynamic networks of interdependent relationships where leadership emerges through interaction rather than hierarchy. So these systems are characterized by shifting coalitions, informal influence networks, and adaptive responses to changing conditions. They extend beyond the organizational boundaries to include market forces, technological disruption, ecosystems, and competitive dynamics that create opportunities and challenges. Here, leadership is about navigating complexity and facilitating emergence rather than controlling the outcomes. And as I mentioned before, um, this is AI is the exemplar du jour here. Okay, so open systems. Again, take 3 minutes and think about your challenge from an open systems perspective. Go ahead. Okay, just about 20 seconds left.
Mike, I don't know if you're seeing the chat, but I had a question about, can the challenge be both administrative and open, like tariffs?
Yeah, thank you. All right. So there's an end of our 3 minutes. Yeah, good question here. Absolutely, Akua. It can be any of these challenges can relate to one or more of the different types of systems. So our goal here is not to cleanly delineate which type of system it is, but rather to identify the issues. And yeah, tariffs are a great example. Absolutely, there's an administrative challenge there, but there's an open challenge, particularly in today's political climate, where yeah, are they on? Are they off? What's the amount going to be? And it seems to shift every week. I'd even argue that given the current setup, the administrative systems are also emotional, excuse me, tariffs are also emotional systems, which we'll get into in a second. Yeah, good question. Um, Other questions regarding open systems? We got a little straw poll here. Yeah, so one that I'm in our quick poll here, multiple stakeholders with competing interests. Again, if there's no further questions, could I have someone that answered with that to just share very briefly about that particular open system challenge and how it relates to what you're facing? Anyone with a multiple stakeholders with competing interests like to share briefly about that? All right. Hey, no problem. I will share an example with that. So one of the cases that I'm currently in love with when I teach business ethics is about autonomous vehicles, self-driving vehicles. And will we ever get to a future where everybody rides around in a self-driving vehicle? And the really interesting part of this case, and again, it's an ethics case, is when we start naming the different stakeholders, right? The entities that have a stake or impacted by this decision or not, and the relationships with one another, the technological part is quickly overshadowed by the open systems of all of these different stakeholders and the impact that it could have on them as we progress to that possible type of future, to the point where we usually walk away thinking, is this even possible? Is this even what we want? So yeah, that dynamic interplay can be really really impactful. Good. Okay, well, let's move on then to emotional systems. All right. This is actually my favorite one. This is where we get into some really good stuff. Emotional systems operate on evolutionary principles where individual and collective behavior is driven by survival instincts. We're just trying to stay alive. All right. These systems are characterized by automatic responses to perceived threats, both real and imagined. And these dynamics can extend beyond the workplace to include broader societal tensions, political polarization, economic uncertainty, cultural conflicts, social media driven anxiety that influence how people show up and respond at work. In emotional systems, leadership means managing anxiety and threat responses while maintaining the psychological safety necessary for effective functioning. So we want to remain alive. We want to remain safe. That is a perfectly natural human response. And yet, trying to remain safe sometimes will override the things that we need to be doing, particularly when these are automatic responses. Think about the gazelle who sees the lion and takes off running automatically. So that's what emotional systems, again, 3 minutes. Think about the emotional system dynamics with your leadership challenge. Go ahead. Just about a minute left. If you have questions about emotional systems, you put those in the chat. Give you a chance to raise your hand in a moment here. Okay. Questions about emotional systems. Okay, I'm not seeing questions, but I do see your comment, Scott. Scott,
Yeah,
could we volley the ball back and forth for a minute or
sure.
two?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'll wing
Me too.
it.
Um, yeah, I saw your comment here and I'm like, oh, this is juicy. So if I'm understanding this
Yeah,
right, so you're
hopefully none of my supervisors are on this.
right, yeah. Well,
Hello,
that's a
if you
different,
are.
if they are, this is a different Scott in a different state.
That's
This is
right.
not the Scott you think it is. Okay. Um, so it sounds like so your department toggles between being a service group and one that
Hmm.
produces marketing assets,
That's right. Yeah.
right? To produce enrollment. Can I ask which of those is the official function of your department or the original? Maybe.
Probably the first one, before we formed a marketing division over here on John Street. It was more of like a service group. I think I inherited a position. I'm kind of new here. Um, the photographers were kind of asked to go out and find clients. So, but then we got a little bit more savvy at RIT and said, well, we need a marketing division. So we need to be producing more ad-like type things to boost enrollment. Efforts. So yeah, I think we're kind of like in an awkward growing stage, and I don't like to say no, so I have a lot of empathy for people trying to get their events covered and their photo shoots done. But then also I feel maybe not the best way to utilize our talents here.
Yeah. So from an administrative system perspective,
Mhm.
things have evolved over time, but my
Yes.
guess is the where all this is documented hasn't quite caught up with the reality that you live with day to day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Um,
And then I'm also hearing in here to boost enrollment. So that's very much an open system challenge, isn't it? You know, e- we're all dealing with this in some way, shape, or form of how do we boost enrollment? Some of the dynamics that are causing that were anticipated, the demographic cliff for college students is an example. But
yeah.
then, AI is the disruptor or political climate, all of those things kind of feed into that.
Mhm.
And
It's a moving
good.
target. It's very challenging.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then when we get to emotional systems, um, one of the things I heard you say was, I don't like to say no. Um,
Yeah.
I won't ask for a show of hands here, but everybody put up your hand. If you're in a position where there's part of your job, at least, where you don't like to say no, none of us do, at least if we're trying to do our jobs well. But what often happens, and Scott, I wonder if this is your experience, is it ends up being whatever fire happens to be burning the brightest and the hottest at the moment, then draws the
Yes.
attention.
That's right. And we have little time to think at 30,000 feet and to explore new concepts and new visual approaches that are dynamic enough to compete out there in the mass stream of advertising. Um,
Yeah,
like that opening slide you showed of the building. One day I said, well, I'm going to go photograph the Saunders College, and that was just a spec thing that I went out and did, and it's gotten a lot of mileage. So it's like we need to be doing more things like that. Yeah, so it's a constant struggle. There's two mouths to feed here.
right, right. Yeah, very good. Thanks, Scott, for kicking that around a bit.
Yeah, you're
And
welcome.
what we can see in Scott's example, this is like the perfect confluence of these three different systems coming together and how there's aspects of each one there. And I'm looking at our poll, um, right, instinctive responses, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, which I didn't list there to perceive threats. Every group has their response du jour or response, I don't know, whatever, their standard response. A threat comes in, let's just start fighting fires. Even if there's not fires, we'll light fires so we can fight fires so we feel like we're doing a better job. Or let's just keep our head down and hopefully this problem just goes away. There tends to be these automatic responses. And you might have found yourself thinking at some point, like, maybe we ought to think this one through, but there's not time for that. All right. Yeah. Um, and then Jancy, yeah, I got great comment here. I think that all of these things are amplified often because of the way we communicate and social media. So, um, no matter what your problem is, yeah, you can find an influencer who likes to make a buck off of that problem. Some of it's helpful, some of it's just entertainment, some of it's not, but it's there and it amplifies for sure. All right, last movement here. We've talked about administrative, we've talked about open, we've talked about emotional systems. Now I want to turn the page here. I want you to think about you yourself in the midst of all of these systems and all of these challenges. And by the way, in the 6-week coaching program that I know we're gonna talk about here, we get way into the you part of it. In my classes, we get way into the you part of it. When I do coaching, the you part of it. Here, we're just doing like 3 minutes, but it's a start. And I'm actually leading with the most foundational questions that I know as it relates to you in the midst of these challenges. And it's these. As you think about your leadership challenge and you think about it from the perspective of administrative, open, and emotional systems, ask yourself these two questions. What am I actually responsible for and not responsible for? And who am I actually responsible to and not responsible to in the midst of those? So again, I'm going to give final 3 minutes here. I want you to think through that. What am I responsible for, not responsible for? Who am I responsible to and not responsible to? Right. As always, you can drop questions in the chat, but pause and think. Okay, about 30 seconds left here. Any questions about you yourself, your responsibilities? Right. Any questions about self, or maybe a flash of insight you'd be willing to share? Something that maybe occurred to you that hadn't occurred before when you start thinking about what's my actual responsibility here? Any questions at all about anything that we've talked about here? I know we went very quickly, just scratched the surface, but hopefully it's a little bit of insight, little food for thought. And with respect to that, here's what I'm curious about. And I would ask you to just take a minute and put it in the chat. What's the one most valuable thing that has occurred to you in the last 45 minutes? What's one thing that you're walking away from today that was helpful? Don't make me sit here and like fret and hold my hands and give into my emotional system dynamics like, oh, there was something, one little thing. Right? If there wasn't, I will just shamelessly say make something up. what was the one thing that was helpful to you? And in the meantime, if there was something here, I will put this in the chat. Glad to connect with you if you like on LinkedIn, my LinkedIn profile. Got my website with a whole bunch of other resources along these lines. And there's my email as well. You're more than welcome to reach out if you have any specific questions or further thoughts.
Thank you, Mike, so much for that really awesome, informative session. And I had a lot of fun putting together the speed polls. So thank you, everybody, too, for participating.
Thank you,
in
Jancy.
those.
I'm like, oh, there's a poll. I didn't do it. It must be.
Surprise.
It's always when something good happens behind the scenes. It's always Jancy.
Sometimes you have to force the participation. So thank you all for volunteering with that. Just as a quick wrap up too, in case 45 minutes just was not enough time with Mike Palanski, we are running a 6-week mastermind with him that is based on his book, The Me1st Method, and that kicks off January 9th. And there is a link to learn more and register in the chat. And I know many of you have gone through our executive MBA program or our alumni and have done other programs with us. If you have any friends or anyone in your network who you think they should just get it going January 2026, we are also still accepting applications for that cohort. Again, thank you all for joining us for today's Executive Insights, and until the next one.
Bye, everyone.